Hey, Carl.
Hello, hi Joe.
Hey, good to speak to you. So, yeah, we met each other at Weta Workshop where you've been painting the collectibles, eh?
Yeah.
And yeah, so what got you into painting miniatures?
Ooh. Well, I'm the odd one. So, hi, I'm Carl, and I'm from Malaysia. So that's how I started in painting back in Malaysia when I was still studying as a student.
What did you study, Carl?
Hmm?
What did you study?
I studied I was back in school back then, so we just do our secondary schools and
Yeah.
all. So I was studying like some science class, those artistic class and all. One of my friends from the UK brought back a model, like those kind of blister packs
Oh
of
yeah.
Games Workshop models, and I didn't know what was that back then because this kind of collectibles and toys are not very common where I come from.
Mm.
So I asked, my friend gave that to me as a gift, and he told me, "Hey Carl, this kind of model, it's not painted. You can paint it yourself. You built it, use glue, and put it in the base, and then you can paint it, and then you can play it." So to me, that was fascinating. That was crazy, because most of the time when you go to a store, you buy a toy, you buy a figure, it would be ready-made, or you have to just snap it like a Gundam toy. You snap it yourself, and yeah, that's pretty much as it is. But for like Warhammer Games Workshop figures, they you have to do everything by yourself. Yeah, most of the time. So that opened up an artistic side of me. I I started doing it, collecting it, painting it, and I find it that this is a very fun and interesting thing to do. Uh,
Mm.
I asked my friend, where do I find all these type of models? And he showed me the website in UK, Warhammer. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good. And been searching around the country if there's a shop that sells this kind of products. And I found one shop back then. That was during I think that was during the early 2000s. Yeah, early
Wicked.
2001s.
What
And
did
from
you
there,
start?
whew,
Yeah, man. What did you
yeah.
start with? Because obviously Warhammer, they have like the futuristic stuff and the old
Mm-hmm.
stuff and like even the Lord of the Rings stuff.
So I think it was like an orc model, those kind of space orcs, and
Yeah,
that
nice.
was what shot me all the way to orcs. I was a huge fan of orcs all the way
Yeah.
back then, and that during that time that was when Lord of the Rings was released
Yeah,
on
nice.
theaters. Yeah, and that got me really hooked because I really do enjoy the story, the sets, the props, and especially the orcs.
Yeah,
They make
nice.
me. Yeah.
Wicked. Did you paint the because they'd released Lord of the Rings Warhammer figures as well, eh? Did you collect
Yeah,
them? Yeah,
I
yeah.
do paint like the Mumak of Harat. I have those.
Oh wow.
Bit of Nazgul, those plastic models. Yeah, I've worked on those. Did a bit of conversion on them too because I really like how they look in the movies. Like
Mm.
the main Harat, the Mumak has that guy on the Howdah, and the Tusk have all these kind of spikes and a lot of mods around it. So I decided to make one by myself, add a bit of like green stuff, some ropes on it, so it looks different than the other Mumakils that are in the
Totally.
base box sets.
Yeah, that's the fun thing. I think that's kind of a gateway for a lot of people with Warhammer into model making because
Yeah.
yeah, the conversions are kind of encouraged. There's a lot big competitions where people convert them, and the white is it White Dwarf?
Yeah, so there are like what we call games
Yeah,
day conventions, tournaments, Golden Demon painting competitions
Golden
are there.
Demon. That's what I was
Yeah,
thinking.
that's the
Yeah,
one. So there's none in Malaysia. So what we do have is local competitions. And
cool.
back then when I was still a student during university days, I don't really have that much money to travel around just for to
Sure.
enter a competition like in UK, Australia. So most of the competitions are held in locally in my country, which are small based competition from independent stockists.
Mm.
So yeah, I just enter and show my stuff. Sometimes I judge too, because some of the organizers say, "Hey Carl, you've been entering and winning way too many times. Maybe it's high time you judge instead."
Nice.
Okay, okay, give other people a chance. Fine, sure.
That's
Yeah.
great. No, that's really cool, man. So yeah, so you were entering these competitions from probably quite a young age then, is that?
Yeah, so appropriate like my age, but I do uh, uh, game with other people. There are all
Mhm.
types of entries. So we have like single model, squad, large models, and there are many types of teams that we can choose from lah, or we can think out of, and of course prizes and stuff lah. But to me, the joy is actually to just work on the piece, paint it up, display it, and yeah, that's the team. This is how I think of this model, how it would look in these certain settings. Yeah, different types of colors that I use, what type of materials that I need to use on this model to make it fitting to the theme that is presented. So that was what I enjoy most about competitions.
Totally, man. Do you stick to the Citadel paints with Warhammer? Or
Uh, Sometimes back then there was only citadel paints. They are
yeah,
quite common in Malaysia.
hmm
I've used Vallejo too, Vallejo.
yeah,
Uh, Army paints. I've tried many different type of paints. Any
yeah,
of them that I find useful. I like the color tones. I like the theme. I like this shape of color. I'll use that as long as it works on a model.
yeah.
Then yeah, it doesn't
Cool.
have to be specifically just citadel paints.
Sure. Yeah, I guess a lot of it's to do with the consistency at that scale as well.
Yeah, so it has to flow well. It has to be thin. The paint has to be particular thin. If not, you have to add water, mix it, and get the right amount of like milk consistency for airbrushing. Certain types of ways of painting. Yeah, I start
Sorry,
judging
yeah,
local competitions.
yeah,
So like independent stockists or certain shops will organize a painting competition and they need like painting judges
yeah.
for their entries. And they call sometimes they call me, sometimes they call one or two other person. It's mostly me because in Malaysia it's a super niche community with this
hmm
hobby. And to spend that hobby just painting more than gaming and buying, it's not easy because I focus more on the painting side. I don't really play the game, not much.
Yeah.
So uh, to find someone to be able to understand colors, to understand composition, and to understand the overall setting of how a model should appear in a contest on the entry, it's not many of us do that.
Interesting. Yeah, that's a great niche, eh? And
Yeah,
because they're expensive models as well, like
yeah.
so, to practice on that sort of thing, it must have been quite an investment.
It is, yes. I've spent quite a good amount on just working on this hobby. Most of the
Mm,
time, I do it out of just passion.
yeah,
I don't sell most of them because I like it as my own work in progress pieces. So I would, let's say, one model that I want to make. I don't just buy a model kit to make it. I'll use different types of models, buy different like 4 or 5 boxes just to create that one model,
yeah, right.
that specific one. So because I like that certain piece on this specific box set, I'll use that piece, and then I will add it onto the main model that I'm making on.
Uh,
Yeah, so it's quite an investment doing this.
so they're expensive to start with, but if you start combining them, it gets even more expensive.
Yeah, and then at the end of the day, you get like a $500 model that is pretty small, but it's something that I really want to do. My head keeps telling me you gotta do it just to showcase it or just to, get that itch out of you to do it. So yeah, I just
Absolutely, man. No, it's great. Like, and people spend money on all hobbies. You know what I mean? Doesn't matter what it is. Like, and if it's something you enjoy, then it's great. And it's skills that have really, paid off in the long run as well for you.
yeah. To actually work at a workshop, it's an honor
Yeah.
because
So,
yeah,
you were saying that you started doing a few little commissions for people as well, like paid jobs.
yep. So people will hire me to paint like their armies, their models, or let's say a client, a very high up client that wants a display case or a display model, a feng shui dragon on their office table maybe. So they call me in and say, "Hey Carl, I want something nice to display at the office when I see clients or I see people." So think of something, maybe a dragon, a tiger, any type of model, an eagle, and paint it up, present it to me, and I'll just pay you a fee. So that's how I start.
Wicked.
Mm.
That's awesome. So who are your typical clients for that sort of thing? Is it?
So my clients are mostly corporate clients. There are some corporate clients that really love. They can't paint, but they like collecting the hobby, and they like certain stuff on their office tables. So those are generally they'll come to me, and once they like my work and all, they just keep coming. That what same person. That like
Interesting.
one of my clients has been with me for what 10 years already, still going.
Wow, that's ace. That's so cool. Do you still do that while you're working at Weta as well?
Not really. It's a bit hard here because most of my clients are from Malaysia. So
Yeah.
for logistic wise to ship it here and ship it back is a challenge. So what I do here, I'll try to set up like client base here and get some painting done, get something started here.
Excellent, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in the meantime, you're keeping plenty busy at Weta, right?
Yeah.
So what was your first contact with Weta? So how did you move from painting for clients to getting into this sort of work?
It is an interesting story because I saw like the workshop was hiring people, just general hiring. And I was like, yeah, well, one of my friends told me that the workshop was hiring, and being a massive fan of games, Warhammer, Weta Workshop, and everything that they do in terms of their props, prosthetics, and their armor design, I was say like, why don't I just send my portfolio out? I mean, what are the odds, man? There are millions of people around the world that really wants to work at a workshop too, and well, I mean, just just try my luck.
Sure.
And yeah, for some positive, great reason, the stars aligned, and I got a call from the workshop from Weta, like, hey Carl, we like what you see, we like what we see, and we like to contact you, see where we can go from here. Like, wow. Okay.
So, because Weta's got like an online thing that you submit your CV to, right?
Yep.
So how long after you submitted it did you get a call?
So I submitted my entry, more like I started my portfolio on like December or early January, from what I remember. That was a year ago.
Yeah.
And I got a email back from them on March.
Wow, that's good, eh? Yeah, because sometimes it sits in that system for quite a while. So yeah, it's good. They must have sort of seen it and it jumped out at them.
Yeah, it's like wow, okay, because I don't have any like presence in the film industry. I'm 100% collectible painter. In my country, Malaysia, we don't really have a big industry in manufacture for like film props. We are mostly like 3D animation studios, 3D game studios, most of that.
Cool.
So to have like Weta Workshop contact me, it's a very big thing. And I was like, oh,
incredible.
Wow. Yeah.
So did they offer you a work visa as well so you could come over?
No, I came I was actually getting my work visa at that time because my goal was to actually work in New Zealand here because I really love this country. I studied here for a while and I went
really?
Yeah, I studied here. I was here in 2013 and 16. So I did my courses here, visual art course.
Oh,
and then I was searching for a job in New Zealand, in Auckland, Hamilton, where I was. It's like the goal was to work towards Weta Workshop,
right?
And finally reach the pinnacle, which is the workshop.
Yeah.
And, well, I guess I skipped all that part now that I'm
nice.
It's
funny how that can happen, eh?
Yeah, it's crazy. I really love living here in New Zealand. It's a very beautiful country. So I decided to try all my best here. Yeah.
So when you applied for Weta, you were already in the country at that point?
When I applied for Weta, I was in Malaysia back then. So I couldn't find a job back in the 2016. So I went back to Malaysia to start my own business as a hobby store. At that time, it's very hot there, running like a Warhammer store as an independent stockist. From there, I learned how to you know, do spreadsheet, greet clients, paint, and sell products. So that helped me out on that process in terms of income.
Yeah,
And
right.
at that time, I was still sending out resumes to New Zealand companies.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's
So
how that was applying. And because of that, I was also applying for my work visa to try again, coming back to New Zealand. And then I got the call from Weta. I sent the I sent that information to Immigration New Zealand, and they say, "Oh well, your work visa is approved because of that name, workshop."
excellent. That's so good. And you've been applying same as me for a skilled migrant visa, so you can stay more long term.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I've applied to skilled migrant visa, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, that's great. So you said they had you as a collectibles painter because obviously, as much as where to do a lot of the film stuff, they also have their collectibles brand range, which they sort of sell, figures of all
Random.
sorts,
Yep.
don't they?
So Weta has an online store where they sell their collectibles, their polystone statues, their vinyl statues,
Hmm.
and they were looking for a painter to get all these things done. So it's quite interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah. So yeah, I'm the right person to fit in because
yeah,
we need someone to dedicate to just paint collectibles. So yeah, that's
that's you.
what. So that's basically a dream job to get paid and paint the stuff that you like. Paint the
Yeah,
paint the movie collectibles that you get to see the latest movies or the one that they are working on. Yeah, and the one that's already been released, like famous characters that you know in film that Weta has made. They are all in collectible form.
yeah, true. So what was the first job they started you on, Carl?
I think they started me on Borderlands 3. Yeah, they're
What?
already up now in the store. Borderlands 3 Figures of Fandom. Yeah.
Excellent,
They
cool.
were trying to branch into video game
Yeah.
collectibles because Beta's mostly on movie
Hmm.
movie characters based on like cinema, like Lord of the Rings. Their biggest range is of course Lord of the Rings, and
Yeah.
now they were trying to branch into video games, hot video games like Apex Legends and Borderlands 3, which at that
Mm.
time was very hot and still is. So I was the one painting most of them, most of the collectibles. You can see them all at the Weta Workshop website.
Wicked. That's so cool, eh?
So it's the paint master I'm doing, and those will be followed by everyone. The colors that I use,
Mm.
the methods that I use, and there are ways to paint it because there is cost of these models. Yeah.
Mm.
So I have to minimize the paints I use on certain models. I have to be tricky on how I want to paint it. I can't use my full color range. I have to use like washes, certain inks, just to make paint cheaper. Yeah, different
Interesting.
quality of paints you use on a model depends on the cost that will be mass produced towards the end.
Yeah, that makes sense, eh? And also, like, it must be quite strange to um, paint three all at the same time. So you'd have to do each process on each one.
So how I paint was is very simple. I have to paint it batch painting a squad of models like
Yeah.
Space Marine. All of them look the same color.
True.
I have to
Okay.
do that on the Weta collectibles, and they are way bigger. They are let's say
Yeah.
9 inch,
Yeah.
8 to 9 inch.
Yeah.
So
Right.
paint those exactly the same.
Yeah. And they look great. Like you do such a good job of them. Yeah.
So very fun
Always,
to paint. They're really nicely sculpted,
yeah.
casted too. Yeah.
Yeah, they are. They're good quality. Yeah. I love coming in the paint shop and seeing what you're up to. You've always got some good
I'm
projects.
most I'm mostly in
Yeah.
my desk.
Yeah, man. That's good. So when you're painting them as well, do you use brushes or airbrushes? What's the sort of?
Yep. So generally, I use a lot of airbrushing because
Mhm.
airbrushing, one thing is fast. It's smooth. You get all the smooth skin surfaces. You can use a lot of tricks on airbrushing, spackling, drawing patterns, making tattoos, and all. Airbrushing is very useful. But
Mm,
sometimes certain elements, like you want to paint a solid color, you want it sharp, you want sharp lines, you have to use a brush, and
yeah,
you
right.
use very like thin brush, 0.3 millimeters,
Wow,
0.2. Those are really small brushes just for fine detailing. Yeah,
amazing.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Did you start airbrushing when you were doing the Warhammer miniatures as well?
Yes, so I've been airbrushing, not really super good at it because most of the time it's all just base coating back
Yeah.
in when I was painting Warhammer figures. So sometimes I work on big models like big giant robots like
Hmm.
9 to 10 inch. I have to airbrush those because there's a lot of surface to cover.
Yeah.
Get the general coat of the airbrush, then you get the shading, and then you can start fine detailing. That basically skip a lot of the slow process of actually hand painting a model that is
Sure.
this big. Yeah,
Yeah.
generally. And in Weta, I learned a lot of different new tricks at the on how to paint using an airbrush, how to
Yeah.
make it even more realistic. Yeah.
Yeah. Nice.
Mhm.
Did you start when who was Jules in charge or was Dolly there when you first
Jules
started?
was in charge. So Jules, he's an absolute mad lad. I like that guy. He taught me a lot of. He taught me the way of the airbrush. Taught
Good,
me the way how to.
because I guess he used to be the miniature painter, right? Before
Yes.
then the head of paint, Dodie, went. She's been working overseas, and he sort of took over that role. So you've slipped into Jules' shoes.
Yep. So he asked me to come in because he couldn't handle the workload since he's now organizing the paint shop and part of the team leader process. So he said, "Hey Carl, I need someone to paint collectibles because he can't really sit at the desk for 5 minutes without somebody coming in and asking him to do something else."
Yeah,
So he brings me in and say, "Hey Carl, I just want you to paint collectibles." And there's a lot of like stuff that I normally do. I'll teach you all the way. And so, yeah,
mm,
he's a very nice, very good mentor.
yeah,
Sometimes a bit hard on me, but that's good because I get better, I work harder,
good,
and I learn from the way of how film industry paint their
sure.
stuff. Yeah,
Yeah, that's awesome, mate. Yeah, it'd be good to speak to Jules. Actually, he's a good one. Yeah,
he's a legend,
yeah,
a rock legend.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Does it vary a lot from how you used to paint Warhammer stuff, or?
Yes, definitely, because I'm no longer painting small models. Well, let's show you an example.
Oh yeah,
So
perfect.
I paint models like this. These are really tiny. Can you see them?
Amazing. A
Mm-hmm.
little bit out of focus, but if I drop an image on, then we can see
Mm-hmm.
that close up.
Yeah, so my models are generally this small.
Yeah,
Um, in Weta, you're painting collectibles that are this big.
yeah, right.
Sometimes they can be small, like the micro epics that are being displayed at the cave, or the mini
Hmm.
epics, which are generally slightly bigger. But you
Hmm.
do get the polystone statues, which are massive. So
Hmm.
it was one of my first foray on painting collectibles at this range that this big, con- continuously.
Yeah,
Yeah.
interesting. Um, yeah, so obviously the Borderlands with that sort of in between scale, they're the mini epic sort of scale, but then
Uh,
the
Yeah, so there are some mini epics for Borderlands 3, which are around like pretty small, very cute,
yeah,
stylistic models. And then you get the realistic one, which are for actual collectibles called Figure of Fandom, which are around the 8 to 9 inch range. They are
wow.
pretty big deals. Yeah, those.
Have any of those been released, Carl, that you've worked on for those?
Yes, they have. So if you take a look at the Weta website, they have like the Borderlands range for all the 4 hunters in the game. And
Hmm.
those are done by me and a couple of my friends in the paint department. We do
Yeah,
help out each other to get most of the stuff done. So yeah, so it's crazy because we use all types of methods to paint. Example, if you look at Amara, she has this kind of blue hands, swirly magical hands around her, those kind of energy
yeah,
hands,
right.
and those can't be painted by hand, nor can it be painted by a simple flat-based acrylic paint. This has to be painted by a very interesting translucent blue, and first it has to be casted in the translucent color, like just translucent by itself, and then you have to apply a very thin base of type of color called candy. It's very interesting. So
Mm,
candy is a very chemical based paint meant for automotive vehicles.
nice.
Yep, and we have to use that to get this kind of translucent blue, but you'll be able to see through and still see the inner parts of the hands, which
Yeah.
It's a very interesting tool. I learned a lot on using this product. It's a very toxic product, but it is a very fun product to use. Get to see the
Good.
effect right away.
Yeah, nice. That's awesome. So of the bigger figures, what other projects have you been working on?
Another one would be Dark Crystal, which are one of my favorite.
Cool.
So the Dark Crystal, Age of Resistance, by Gene Hansen. Those
Yeah.
there was a Netflix on TV series on this, and
Yeah.
some of the new collectibles I've been working on, which are currently now at the cave and at the workshop at the website. Like
Amazing.
Deed was one of my favorite. Was the most recent one.
Beautiful, man. That D statue. Yeah, I think I will have to try and buy one for Jenny at some point. She loved that show, and yeah, it's such a cute collectible.
It is a beautiful collectible. We were struggling with the wings because I was talking like how do I make the wings beautiful and colorful. And then Steven Saunders, the sculptor for it, he made the wings translucent, just a flat translucent color. And I thought of it, I want to make the wings sort of like those dragonfly wings where when you look at it, there's a certain reflection of purple, blue, but still retain its translucency. So I follow that reference closely, and I get that color tone. If you look at the picture of Deed at the back, her wings, there is heaps of color on it to make it look like a pearlescent in a way. They're blue and purple. From a point of view, if you look at the whole model, it's muted, it's green, it's very dark and very toned colors. But when you see the wings, it catches your eye. So to me, I look at that as focal points for the figure. Yeah.
Nice. So is that what you would refer to? You mentioning composition earlier, like a nice model has got like a mixture of lots of different things in the right areas, and
every model has to have what catches the human eye. Like the most important part is of course the face of the figure. That's the first thing you will see. The face defines the character. So that is always the most important part that I will put on. I will work on that the hardest. And I always start on the face first of a character so I can get everything right. Most of the time people will tell me, Carl, you should just start on the other stuff first. So then you can work on the face. But for me, I think of the face the most challenging part, and I will paint the most challenging part first. And I nail that correctly, then the rest of the part will be easier for me.
Cool. And then when people are looking over your shoulder and commenting on stuff, at least the main part that they're looking at looks correct, right? So yeah, psychologically, yeah.
Yeah, and from there they can come to a conclusion that now that the face is you nail it correctly, the rest of the parts you can just flow correctly. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, he did such a good job of sculpting D as well. So also, am I right in thinking that they used some of the scans from the puppets?
Yes, they do. They use the scans from the puppets. They follow the reference correctly, and some of them are 3D. Some of them are 3D printed, sculpted on ZBrush, and some of them are hand sculpted, which is also very nice.
Yeah.
Huge differences in how 3D sculpted and hand sculpt works. So there's a lot of ways you can implement it. I'm a huge old school fan of hand sculpted. I like hand sculpted a lot.
Yeah.
As you can see.
But Stephen does more of the digital sculpting, right?
And he's fantastic with it,
Yeah.
Because he has a way of creating good posture, good texture, and with ZBrush it's actually quite easy and fast. And also you can see everything by then.
Yeah.
Everything is easy to refer to.
Yeah. He's also got a lot of experience as a physical model maker, does Stephen, so I'm sure he's brought a lot of that with him into doing digital stuff, So he knows what to do for. Yeah.
He's very experienced, extremely experienced man, a very fun man to talk to hang out with. He also helps take a look at my work and tell me where to improve. So that's because he knows it straight hand.
Yeah.
Always good to get feedback from the sculptor itself.
Yeah, right. That's awesome. So yeah, like I said, they use a mixture of techniques for those miniatures, because some of them are hand sculpted as well. I know. I'm having a mind blank, but yeah, a lot of them.
So like Jane does hand sculpt. Jane is one of the premier Lord of the Rings sculptors. She's very good at sculpting horses.
Yeah,
So
nice.
her horse anatomy is fantastic. How a horse stretch different type of muscle. Another one would be Jamie Westwarwick, which
Yeah.
is the absolutely god tier sculptor. The minute you see his work, be it a creature or a human, the anatomy just works.
Mm,
Everything just works. To the human eye, it's correct. Because
yeah.
anatomy is one of the hardest part to get. But if you nail it on the creature that does not exist, you're a winner.
Yeah, nice. So, yeah, for example, would that be like Balrogs and things like that? And
Yeah,
yeah.
there'll be like Balrogs, certain orcs, certain like cave trolls, like Nazguls, the
Mm,
Nazgul head. If you get all the muscle, the sinew, the proportions correct, it's very natural.
mm,
And one of the Jamie sculpture, which is the Balrog, the large Balrog, the pose like slightly twisted. You can see
mm.
all the muscles flowing on the abs and all. That is extremely real.
Yeah,
For a
wow.
creature that does not exist.
Yeah, right, because you wouldn't see that in the, well, you never get a 360 of anything in the film, eh? You know, especially the Balrog would be quite like in shadow and flame, of course, you know.
Yeah, and most of it is covered in darkness. To see a Balrog in its true form without any like dark lighting, it's
Mm,
insane. I
yeah,
didn't know parts that existed were there in the movie. Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so cool, eh? And sculpting horses must be really challenging as well because people are used to seeing them in real life, so you can, you know, you've got a familiarity with it. And same with faces. I'm always amazed how well they can sculpt. I remember Jane was working on Frodo's face for the Frodo and Arwen one,
Yeah.
and yeah, it was so such a good likeness, you know, like and you could tell it was Elijah Wood even before it had been painted. You know what I mean? It just in clay. It's so good.
Exactly like
Yeah.
him. And I
Mm.
think that Arwen statue where Frodo is being he got stabbed by the Witch King, eh? But
Yeah.
and
Right.
and his face you can tell is completely different. His pose and all because he's wounded and
Yeah.
soul is cut.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of work goes into those collectibles for sure.
heaps of work, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because because it's not, you know, these are all done after the film, so these weren't maquettes for the film. These are sculpted, you know, as pieces of art after,
Yeah.
right?
These
Mm,
are all just like pivotal parts in the movie that the fans can refer to that this is a very strong area.
mm,
So those parts with all the action poses is part of the sculptor's creative idea on how they want to make it, how they
yeah,
want, and to put that in model form. It's a joy for collectors that is really
sure.
want their favorite characters or their favorite infantry on collectible form. Yeah.
Yeah. So these are not like Warhammer. These come painted, don't they? For, you know, when people buy them, they've got a base and you know, they're
Yep.
already printed. Yeah, yeah,
Yep. They are all printed with limited edition runs too. So these are really hot products.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Uh, and yeah, these are all 100% sculpted by artists. I've met
yeah,
every single sculptors that work in the film industry.
yeah,
They all have been through the rings. They
yeah.
have
Right.
experienced rings. They know they talk to the characters. They've seen the work there. They've worked on the work during the rings era, and they know how the sculpture works. They know how like certain characters have certain elements in their backpack or their pockets that you see a bit in the movie, but die-hard fans will understand.
Yeah,
And,
totally.
yeah.
Yeah, Jamie in particular, he was a big part of all the concept sculpting, I believe, for Lord of the Rings. There.
Yep. So he's one of the oldest, one of the oldest sculptor at the workshop.
Mm,
He's still there, still going strong.
yeah,
Look forward for his new works. Can't
yeah.
say it, but every time a JB sculptor comes up for sale at the at the website, it will be sold out instantly.
Interesting. Yeah. So it's got, yeah. So that's quite interesting. Eh? The different sculptors have like almost like a fan following.
Yeah, yeah. There's actually Facebook pages and groups dedicated to rings collectibles.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's interesting. Eh? And it's cool how they do them as limited runs as well to make them collectible rather than they're not mass-produced toys like.
No, they're not. They are really limited runs because they are really sought after. It's really hard to make them too, and every one of them is crafted expertly. Like they have the Master Series for the collectibles, which are the most detailed sculptures with actual, strands of cloth and like to simulate hair. So they're not sculpted hair; they're actual like cloth to the make that looks like hair.
Because I remember recently watching a video of Galadriel. And that was beautiful.
That was insane. I remember helping out on painting that one. There were heaps of parts, and they were all separate because when when her hand is waved like that, all the cloth are flying everywhere, and those are separate components.
Wow.
Painting those and handling those without attempting to break the parts, it's not
Who
easy.
sculpted that?
That was sculpted by let me remember her name. She's also one of the oldest sculptors.
Brigitte. Is it Brigitte?
Yeah, that's her. Yeah, she's the sculptor.
Yeah, Brigitte was. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Yeah, amazing job, eh?
Yeah, like exactly like the characters in a movie.
Yeah, so cool. Yeah, and the cool thing about that, Marco, my boss, Brigitte, they're married, and she's able to work on some of those from home, so she can help with the it's a nice. Seems with collectibles, you can have a bit more of the work-life balance almost, or certain people are able to do that. I mean, I don't know. You're probably full-time, eh?
But sort of, I do because I do enjoy what I do. So every time when I go to the workshop, I don't feel like it's a tiring process because I look forward to it every day. I come back finishing my work like, I've achieved something today. I've got a certain part done, and I feel good about it. So I don't get stressed out at work. Most of the time, and it's also a much more relaxed pace because there's constantly stuff to do for collectibles.
Yeah, nice.
There's always something to showcase during a convention, always something to show maybe down the line. So they are never ending. As long as movies are being made, fandom is being generated. There's always something for the fans in the collectible form.
Nice. So, because obviously you've got the high-end collectibles that we were talking about, like the Lord of the Rings ones, but the mini epics and the micro epics, So they are a bit more. Are they limited runs as well, or are they a bit more?
Those are much more common, and they are meant for game stores that you go to the EB game stores. They do sell those too. So it's sort of like a small gift for people. If you like a collectible but you can't afford the bigger ones, and you just want one of the other range of collectibles, mini epics and micro epics are your type. They are more stylized and they are sculpted by one of my Maro. Maro is a fantastic sculptor. It's all done by him. Every single mini epic is all his style.
Wow, that's cool, eh?
Look for the many different types of fandom, from of course Borderlands to Men in Black to Ghostbusters, which are all at the store now. From Rings, Planet of the Apes. Every single movie fandom, game fandom that you want it in collectible form is done by Maro.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, because he was a prop maker for a long time at Weta before developing this.
Yes, his own range of collectibles.
Yeah.
For the mini epics.
Yeah, it's good because it's like you said, it's a slightly lower price point because it's a wider run and smaller scale. So they're a bit more affordable for people, that or maybe even like a younger audience can get onto that sort of thing.
Yep, because more cartoony in nature.
With their pocket money.
Yeah, it's more cartoony in nature.
Yeah,
and it's good. Like if you want to display it in front of your computer table, like in your small collectible room, you can have those.
Yeah.
Much more easier to start and much more fun to collect collectible because there's a lot of range to collect from at the end of the day for mini epics.
Nice. Do you have a preference of which you prefer to paint? Do you prefer the collectibles or do you prefer painting the mini epics or?
I like a challenge of both. For mini epics, it's more of flat, straight colors. Not much shading, because the production for mini epics are much more cheaper, or more like they need to find a way to make more of that. So I have to cut down the color cost,
Sure.
and the creative part is to try to figure out a model that has heaps of color. How do you compress it to, let's say, 6 or 7 colors?
Yeah, right.
That is the challenge, to use washes, to use different types of color tones but retain that same color palette. So you do like different types of shading. So it's a lot of tricks you have to try to pull off to get that final product that looks real but
Mm.
doesn't cost a bomb to manufacture it.
Yeah, interesting. Um, yeah, and I suppose it also leans in. It suits that cartoony style for them to be a little bit more simplistic as well,
Yeah.
because you're not really going for a lifelike, skin tone or whatever. It can be cartoony, it can be a little flatter, because that kind of suits that stylized thing.
Yep. And then you have the polystone collectibles, which are the bigger ones. The more
Mm,
like rings, dark crystal. Those are more the realistic nature. So to get those painted like the movies, it's
yeah.
a bigger challenge too. You have the lighting to take into account. Like you watch a movie, they have different types of lighting, yellow, blue, and when I paint a collectible, I can't take that into account unless the art director say I want this model in a certain lighting, blue lighting. Then I'll take that into account. Most of the
Mm,
time, we paint it over a white light, and we have to visualize it how the collectors will see their model. Most of them will see it as the movies, so we will have to find a way to achieve that balance. Which part of the movie the collectible works, like in the warm lighting or in the blue lighting? So there's a lot of back and forth with that.
yeah, man, that's a really interesting, especially with dark crystal. It's also tricky for the sculptors, because I was speaking to Johnny Fraser Allen. He was talking about when he was sculpting one of the characters. Every reference photo is different, because it's an animatronic that's, it's got latex skin that's moving around on top of, so their proportions change as they're
Yes,
being animated. So I imagine that's a similar challenge for the dark crystal stuff, eh?
it is. It is heaps of challenge, because we look at the reference photos from the series, and there are many different types of color hues, color shade.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to come to a conclusion. All right, this character has to be in this setting with this color, and then it looks good in as a whole piece. So the collectors that collect it is, yeah, this character did appear in this part of the movie with this sort of lighting.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
all that has to be taken into account
Wow, a
as a
lot of thought and
painter.
effort goes into it, man.
Heaps of thought, and to paint it realistic too is another step,
Yeah.
because there are many tricks to pull that off with an airbrush to create the illusion of texture and patterns. Like you look at the human skin, like my skin for example, it's not just not one flat color. If you look closely, there are like a couple of small dots, different brown dots, different red dots, and you have to try to achieve that kind of effect on a collectible. So
Mm.
what Jules really taught me when I was painting skin in general, or like realistic skin, that the airbrush can create a pattern called speckle. Speckle is basically you are spraying multiple miniature tiny dots on the human face or on the skin texture, for example. And when you connect those dots in the small line or tiny line, and you look it from afar, you look the model from afar, it's incredibly realistic. Why
Wow.
is it so? Because you confuse the human eye by looking at different types of color. And when these colors are like soft faded, blended together, and you look it from afar, it's like there are heaps of things to look at, like a lot of noise around the skin, and that's
Mm.
when it looks super realistic when you create
Wow.
noise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's almost counterintuitive when you're painting it, but when you step back, it makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. When I was painting it with like adding millions of dots on the model, I was like, it doesn't. It's very odd for me because I'm more of a like front flat color following
Yeah.
the materials and all. But when you look from afar, it's ridiculously realistic.
Mm. Would you take any of these skills that you've learned from doing this sort of thing back into your Warhammer? Do you still do any miniature paintings on the side?
Yes, I still do. I've never stopped doing it. I still do.
Nice.
And with the the tricks that I'm learning at the workshop, yeah, it does work on specific surfaces.
Mm.
And example, it's not just Warhammer figures. There are a lot of different collectors range from like indie companies now. So
Mm.
like human bust statues will be nice, where you just show the torso, and those are good templates to paint skin, to paint armor, to paint a certain element of like source lighting, non-metallic metal. So now I can finally achieve try these methods out and make it even more realistic, more
Excellent.
fun. Yeah.
That's so cool. It's good how I love how when someone's hobby becomes their career, but also feeds back into their hobby and creates something new.
Yeah, there's so many things to learn. We never stop learning new things every day. So I
Yeah,
look forward to that.
that's awesome, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's so good to hear your story and yeah, coming from Malaysia as well, just a completely different, background. It's
Yeah.
great. Good on you.
I came here to New Zealand and I finally experienced the film industry. It's
Yeah,
crazy. Quite crazy how things are made, how deadlines are formed and how ideas are thought out of. So it's a big shock, culture shock for me and a
yeah,
nice change.
yeah. Culture and also language. Like you've had to learn a second language to presumably to work over here, and
So basically in Malaysia I do speak English. A
how do
bit a
you?
bit a bit broken. My English is a bit
Yeah,
grammar is all over the place. So because in Malaysia I speak three different types of language. I'm
good on you. Yeah,
Cantonese, so I speak Cantonese from
yeah.
Chinese.
Hmm.
I have my national language Bahasa Malaysia, and of
Wow.
course English, which I learned a bit from school and watching movies, watching TV. That's how I
Yeah,
learned most of English, playing video games. Yeah.
yeah. That's amazing. And then you're fluent now. So like, it's so funny. I have to remind myself that you're, speaking not a second, it turns out a third language.
Yeah, it's like one of the language. I do speak most of it, but not all the time
Yeah.
English. So I'm more of a Bahasa speaker.
Yeah.
So it's like, woo, yeah,
Good on you. Yeah. Oh, it's so good. And yeah, I think it'd be good to catch up later down the line when there's, even more stuff that that's been released that
yes. Can't wait
yeah.
to show you. We should talk to you guys and show you guys some of the newer stuff we are trying to make. Those
Cool.
are insane. Can't
Yeah.
say it yet, but once it's out, woo,
Yeah.
wait for it.
Excellent. So I'll catch you another time then, Carl. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Good to
Joe.
meet you.
Happy to
Okay.
see and talk to you.
Yeah, you too.